Thank you for joining us. You're watching a career success video from Computer Coach. Computer Coach is a Tampa-based computer training center specializing in helping IT and business professionals add on the skills they need to reach their desired career goals. If you are job searching, in transition, or are looking for guidance, please feel free to reach out to us at www.computercoach.com. Now, let's get started.
And I'm super excited to introduce our speaker today, Anna Morgan, the Career BFF. Today, Anna's going to talk about the secrets behind the recruiter's hiring process. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Anna and she'll get started. Enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Danielle, and thank you, Cassandra, for having me. And what a gift to have your organization to serve the community in this way. I actually lived in Tampa for several years. I'm back in Atlanta, so I have a special place in my heart for Tampa people that are, looking to level up their career or in the midst of a job transition. I'm Anna Morgan, Career BFF. I have been a recruiter for about 20 years. I worked about 15 plus years in the agency full cycle, space, and then transitioned into public, big corporate, Fortune 500, where I was a senior recruiter and talent acquisition leader, working with hiring managers. And this training came about through my own journey and realizing there are a lot of nuances between the different types of recruiters, and, job seekers really deserve to have that insider track to, pull back the curtain and give you a little peek into the nuances of the hiring process, which is oftentimes moving very fast. But I'm going to do my best today to give you some high-level understanding of the different types of recruiters. And we're really going to focus on unraveling the secrets that we recruiters want to tell you, but we just haven't gotten a chance to tell you. So it's all also probably questions that you've wanted to ask a recruiter that maybe you've been scared to ask and say, like, how do these things work? So I am an open book and, will give you as much of my experience, strength, and hope in regards to my experience as a recruiter, working with hiring managers throughout a wide, vast amount of industries, hiring a lot of people, as well as negotiating salaries, doing interview prep. And I've now been coaching in the job search strategy place for about 4 years. So combining my expertise as a recruiter, leader, and now job coach to, give you a full agnostic view of how to level up and work effectively with recruiters. So we're going to cover, what recruiters are looking for, the types of common recruiters, kind of a day in the life, and some things to avoid. And then most importantly for you, because your time is just as valuable as the recruiters, how to evaluate recruiters and decide, do I want this recruiter to represent me? Because when they represent you, that is part of your brand. I'm going to give you some suggestions of questions to ask different recruiters and some examples and suggestions on some frameworks to really accelerate and nail messaging when you are reaching out to recruiters, and then we will jump into Q&A. So what are they looking for? I hope this video will play.
Hi, I'm here for the interview with all of my baggage. Pity party. All the times I've been ghosted. Trusting recruiters. Negotiating. Don't take old baggage into new experiences with recruiters.
Again, based on my experience, I would say for the past 15, 20 years, I have, consistently interviewed anywhere from 10 to 40 candidates a week. So if you do the math, I have a lot of data points to work with. So anytime you're exposed to a new recruiter or they message you or, you get that call to schedule something, just remember, it's a clean slate. Let go of the baggage. Forget about the bad experiences if you've had them, because not all recruiters are created equally. And the best way to really accelerate those opportunities is be yourself, be positive, and then be transparent. Understand what they're looking for, and don't be afraid to say thanks, but no say thanks. I'd love to keep the relationship going and move on. So just a little thing to remember. Some really just basic things, regardless of what type of recruiter that you're working with, we are looking for a concise presentation of your career story. Super helpful if you have an optimized LinkedIn profile, I would say quantifiable resume, and partnership and collaboration, as well as strategic follow-up. Recruiters have a lot of moving parts. But if you have these things, you are positioning yourself for success. In theory, job seeking is, simple. Same thing with recruiting. In theory, recruiting is simple, but the execution of it is actually highly complex. And it has to do with timing, it has to do with language and follow-up and your brand and staying top of mind. So now think about the different types of recruiters that you have encountered throughout your career. And maybe this has never even crossed your mind and you just think recruiters, they're just the people that help us get a job, right? There are several different types of recruiters. You have corporate in-house recruiters that are paid a salary, and they are oftentimes designated certain types of positions to fill. For example, in my last corporate role, I worked for a hard surface retailer, and the corporate roles I was responsible for were merchandising, real estate, and construction, basically. Those were like my three buckets. And then my counterpart had accounting and finance, risk, fraud, and inventory and logistics. And then another recruiter had varying levels of technical roles. So they work with the hiring managers directly. They oftentimes post the job. They are conducting the phone screens. They are determining which candidates after they screen that they're going to send to the hiring manager. And they're oftentimes kind of like the air traffic controller of coordinating you through the interview process, as well as extending a verbal offer and walking you through the offer and onboarding process. Then you get a staffing agency. So think of Ronstadt, Roth Staffing, Account Temps, Insight Global. If you have any of your favorite agencies, shout them out in the comments, because it's always good to highlight organizations that are doing good work and creating results. This is a little bit of a different model, and it also spans, you could have boutique recruiters, smaller shops, and they oftentimes have discipline. So you might have like Account Temps with Robert Half, specializes in accounting and finance roles, and they would offer temp to hire and direct hire, and they get paid based on if they place someone for $10 an hour, they're billing the client $16.50, and they cover payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, the fees to employ the associate during the temp to hire period, or they charge a flat fee to the organization for finding you. So there's a different way to interact with a staffing recruiter, agency recruiter versus a corporate recruiter. And the reason being is there's a commission tied to the result that staffing agency recruiter creates for you. And we'll talk a little bit about that when we talk about vetting recruiters. Then you have contingency and direct hire, which are when organizations pay upfront for the recruiting firm to do proactive recruiting, typically found in higher level or really niche areas. And then you have retained and executive search. Again, a higher level of putting some money forward, or a direct hire, much larger fee, but it is commission based. And oftentimes you find executive or retained recruiters who specialize in a certain discipline. Could be engineering, it could be creative, it could be accounting and finance. So the last type that's really common is outplacement. So think of Challenger as an outplacement company, and they offer a lot of different services into, resume, LinkedIn, those types of things, but also recruiting resources as well. So there's a variety. So we're not all like clumped into one area, but things motivate these recruiters differently, which really is something to think about in regards to how you approach recruiters and engage them. Because in my opinion, the psychology behind the communication and deal management is absolutely critical. Okay, so going back to what's important to accelerate opportunities with these recruiters is have career clarity, understand what you're focusing on, understand your resume inside and out, and also, building stories in service of, because I've done these things in this industry, this is why I feel it uniquely qualifies me to do this work, right? Especially if you're trying to pivot. Having those stories ready to go in a concise manner that can sell, you into those opportunities. So knowing what you want, being able to concisely communicate it, and then really lean into storytelling. Storytelling is memorable. And when you're dealing with different recruiters who have a lot of different clients, a lot of positions that they're working on, you're going to increase your top of mind brand awareness with any of those recruiters if you do a good job of telling your career story and making it easier for that recruiter to remember you. I will tell you, all of my years working in agency recruiting, it's not the format of your resume or the weight of your paper or the font that you used or maybe your glamour shot on your resume. It is typically a unique story about you as a human, along with the work that you've done. When a bunch of recruiters are sitting around the table talking about our hot jobs, we're going to say, CM Smith, the guy that climbed the Appalachian Trail, or, this person that it was an Eagle Scout. It's like the way our brain works to remember people is fascinating, right? And so, don't be afraid when you're having these conversations and building relationships with recruiters that you showcase a little, obviously professional, but a little personal as well, because those are the things that help land the actual content of who you are as a professional and where you're looking to go. I know that sounds a little quirky, but it actually works. So going back to easy telling your story, these are some just quick resume tips that is something I feel really passionate about, as probably having my eyeballs cross over 1 million resumes in my career. And people have different opinions about resumes. I personally love if you summarize the company that you're working for. So if my resume, and I said I worked for Floor & Decor, I would say a multi-channel American specialty retailer, with related accessories. Why do I do that? Because recruiters are looking to connect industries and similar size companies and, those connection points. So if you don't want them to assume that the company you worked for was totally out of the industry that they're looking for, if you give a little bit of this grounding summary, it will, one, keep them on your resume longer, and then two, it will help them connect those dots, which will accelerate more conversations with you. And then as far as, providing numbers and metrics, you probably hear this quite a bit, but definitely pull out the tangible results that you created. Grew sales from 1 million to 3 million within 12 months and won a circle of excellence in top sales. Just another example. All right, so we are going to move on to the most common, still probably common experience that most job seekers have with recruiters, which is phone screens. So I'd be curious in the chat how you all feel about phone screens, or confirm my hunch that most recruiters for that first screen are still doing phone screens, or if you are seeing more Zoom, Teams, Google Meet first screens. I'm super curious. So you would be helping me if you help answer that question. So here are some best practices with phone screens. And again, I have experienced all types, from people rolling out of the bed, yelling at me, forgetting that they had the call scheduled. Our energy matters. So when you're getting ready for this phone call, look yourself in the mirror, maybe stand up, and best practices are be an active listener. Let your recruiter lead the conversation. I've also had a lot of candidates that interrupt constantly. And then once they get going, then they never stop talking. And then I can't get additional questions in. And then before I know it, we've hit our 30 minutes. And, at this point, I'm kind of forced to move on. The other thing is, you want to, if your resume doesn't have that little summary, when you're talking about your experience, you want to reference, when I worked at Career BFF as a talent advisor, I was responsible for this. So starting, when you go into the STAR or PAR format, where you're, go-to resources when you're telling interview or answering interview questions, don't forget to reference the point you are in your resume and give a little summary about the company prior to talking about what you do. And then just practice, find a friend, you have a community, look at a job description, write out some questions for your friend, and practice telling your career story. I mean, it is absolutely critical. And in today's world with AI and everybody's like highly customizing your resume, be very careful about that because yes, you want to have some keywords, but the ATS is not this big white whale that eats your resume. It's actually humans that track your resume through the process. And then we look at them and we say thanks, but no thanks. It's not a computer that does that, but you want to know the content on your resume. I've talked to way too many people when they start fumbling over their words and they're like, wait, what was that on my resume? So you want to make sure that that content really resonates with you. Danielle, what was any consensus in the chat with the phone screens?
Yeah, phone screens are the majority of activity or first call.
Okay.
Typically phone screens, but I'm getting a few. I prefer virtual from the participants, that they prefer the virtual ones. But yeah, phone screens are really still the dominant first point of contact.
For sharing that. I just, I figured so, but, I don't like to assume because things move quickly in the world of recruiting and hiring. So the other thing recruiters love, and some like me actually love LinkedIn profiles more than they like resumes. So 70%, probably more, of employers are going to check out some sort of social media profile when they're evaluating you. So LinkedIn is very SEO friendly. It is a great place to display your thought leadership, your professional side, a little of your personal side, and to give evidence, even more so on your resume, of what makes you an outstanding talent, gives you a lot of areas to tell your story, and to give data points to back up why you're incredible at the work that you do. So you want to make sure your headline is optimized for the jobs that you're looking for, so that when I'm running a search in Recruiter or other places, I can find you. And then use your about section. You have 2,200 characters in that about section to really take your viewer on a journey. Where you've been, who you are, what you've done, what people say about you, and then a call to action. What do you want people to do when they read your profile? Do you want to have coffee chats? Do you want to do informational interviews? Do you want to work with other engineers? Are you actively open to interview opportunities for executive assistant positions? Clarity converts. We don't want to be too clever on social media, but definitely use that space to really maximize who you are and what you're all about. So having a good resume, knowing your story, knowing what you want, having that LinkedIn profile is critical. And the majority of recruiters, we want to create a result for you. We don't want to have to screen 15 other people to find one more person to present to our hiring manager. So a couple quick tips to foster relationships with recruiters is follow-up is going to be critical. And I want everyone to get out of their head that it's too much, or I don't want to be annoying. Just follow up, set a ticker and follow up. But you can also provide your availability proactively. So when I look back at an email, I can see, oh, Cassandra said she was available on Tuesday after 2 and Thursday before 11, etc. Please keep your commitments. Obviously, recruiters ghost candidates sometimes. Life happens. So if life does happen, we want to provide grace on both sides. And then preparation. Oftentimes, your recruiter will give you some basic tips for preparing, but always test out your technology if you are going on a Teams or Zoom or Google Meet to make sure everything is functioning. Nothing worse than trying to finagle through that, at the last minute. And then I always recommend that you have 3 types of questions prepared for the recruiter. About the recruiter personally, because you want to build some rapport and connection with that person. Recruiters know a lot of people and can be incredible gate openers and referral partners for you if by chance they don't actually put you in the seat for the position that they're looking for, okay? And then questions about the role, recruiter, based on your time sitting with the hiring manager or the client, what are the top 3 priorities that the hiring manager would want to accomplish in the first 30, 60 days, right? And then about the organization, obviously do some research and have open-ended questions in regards to, how does the organization serve the community? Any other questions that are leadership or culture based to really give you a full scope of the view, getting an understanding of, what the recruiter is about, who they work with in the organization, what they're all about, understanding the role, the key competencies. That's also going to set you up for success in future interviews. And then again, be intentional with your follow-up. And you can always ask your recruiter how they like to be followed up with. So at the end of a call, and this is an area of opportunity for most job seekers, is they take more of a passive role sometimes, and just quickly hang up the phone. And then it's like, oh wait, I forgot to ask like the next step, who's involved in the process. So when you do follow up, you always want to like give the recruiter a reference point as to who you are, what position you interviewed for, when you interviewed for it, and what you understood as the call to action or the next step. So if I were in active job search and, I was wrapping up a call with Cassandra, thank her for her time. And I would say, so I understand, Danielle's the next step in the process. If she likes my resume, we'll set up a Zoom call. And, you said you typically hear back in 3 to 5 business days. How would you like me to follow up? Do you prefer a phone call, an email, a text? And just ask, then that way, some recruiters prefer text. You're also, building that accountability, right? And then when you do follow up, again, reference those things, keep it short, and then follow up with, purpose, right? And be transparent. Depending on the type of recruiter, we want to create the result for you. But if there's not mutual collaboration, transparency, and you're trying to manage a couple different opportunities and not communicating your timelines well, then you might not be able to get to that third interview in time. So you're better served to just be honest with the recruiter and say, hey, this position is number 2 out of the 3 that I'm looking at, and I have 2 more interviews. You do not have to divulge where else you're interviewing, but you want to set boundaries so that that recruiter can manage the timing and expectations with the other decision makers in the process. Okay, so we're seeking you, okay? We want things to work out. We want you to be successful. And now I'm going to give you just kind of real high level of a day in the life of the recruiter, which I've mentioned some of already. Corporate, pretty standard, meet with the hiring manager, review the resumes, lots of scheduling. Sometimes recruiters have scheduling coordinators. They are my favorite people in the whole wide world because I'm a massive calendar dyslexic, and I have such appreciation for folks that can manage multiple schedules. And then we oftentimes are, again, the person guiding the candidate through the process and helping with the onboarding piece. So one of the things when I've been sitting alongside my fellow recruiters, here a couple of the things that we look at each other and just like, blind applications where, it's like you see Sally Smith's application on 77 requisitions in one ATS system, right? Like really just praying and praying, really fluffy language, not having any context on the resume. A pet peeve is like not having your voicemail set up. Did I call the right person? Or not checking their email, right? Like if you want to make sure that the email that you have on your resume or wherever you're putting in applications is one that you check pretty frequently, because timing is everything in recruiting. And then folks that are not transparent, right? Where they're trying to fluff their experience or their compensation or skill set. I mean, that's always going to come back and inevitably bite you in the butt, right? And then lacking clarity, like kind of putting it all back on the recruiter. Well, look at my resume and you tell me what I think I could do. And that's, a lot of times people think recruiters' job is to, look at the resume and match them up. And it's, counterintuitive that it's working with the hiring managers and focusing on their needs and perception of quality and then qualifying the candidate. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I mean, and then, recruiters get equally ghosted just as much as candidates. So, you don't hear as much about that on LinkedIn and other places, but this is why you need to have some kind of education or understanding of how to evaluate recruiters. So, because again, you want to make sure that you are giving permission for quality people to represent your professional brand. So run from the bad ones, focus on the good ones. I believe in having a handful of really trusted recruiters that you work with. You don't need to work with every headhunter in the greater Tampa Bay area, right? They're going to a good recruiter is going to interview you, spend time, understand what your goals are, what your core competencies are, what types of industries that you want to work in, and maybe even some ideal clients, right? They're also going to set expectations with you on what you can expect through the process. They're going to be taking notes, and oftentimes, they'll be transparent that they're inventory recruiting or they have an actual opening. And, apart from money and like big payouts, I would say, great recruiters do their work because they have a higher sense of serving people, and they really do love, from a servant leadership standpoint, enjoy serving people and making this life decision. I know I do. I wake up every day, grateful for the privilege to help someone make this decision, because it affects your marriage, your finances, how you parent, all these different things. So recruiters do different types of recruiting. You might find an organization that focuses on accounting and finance, and you might see like 5 payroll positions, 4 AP positions, 2 AR positions. And typically, if you see that and there's no company attached to it, this is commonly found in agency recruiting, is that they're pipelining, right? They're putting qualified candidates in their pocket. So if a client calls, they say, yes, I've got the perfect person for you. Let me just pluck them out of this little place in my pocket and I'll get them placed. There's nothing wrong with talking to recruiters that specialize in this. The other thing that they do is, as they interview talent in these buckets, they are going to pick up the phone and sell or market, hey, I have a really strong senior accountant with a background in retail. I just interviewed him or her. Are you looking for someone in the future? So just be cautious. I mean, it's like a balance of, I don't want you to waste your time, but be transparent and ask the recruiter, like, are you pipelining candidates? Are you, building this so that you have an inventory of candidates as you go through the process? Active recruiting, this is agency-wise. They will say, hey, Brett, this is Anna from Career BFF. I have a senior electrical engineering position and it's with this company. I highly recommend, when you're working with an agency, if they will not tell you the name of the company that they're working for, I feel like that's a little bit of a red flag. Why? Because you need to know where your resume is going. 2, you don't want to create a conflict that you've already applied to that position and then they're trying to represent you. They should have a job description for you. They should have sat with the hiring manager, decision maker, and give you background on why the position is open, what is important to them, what the salary range is, and what you can expect during the interview process. That's a active recruiting with a recruiting agency that has a legit opening with a client. So determining the quality of the opportunity and the recruiter, you want to ask specific questions, and don't be afraid to get into the details. And this could be across all the different types of recruiters. You can do a lot of this by kind of scoping out their profile ahead of time. How long have they been a recruiter? If they've been a recruiter for 2 months, there might be a different way that you manage that conversation to make sure that they capture all your awesomeness and understand what you're looking for. So how long have they been in recruiting? What do they specialize in? Have they worked with this client in the past? The role, obviously, if they have a legit opening, describe the day in the life of someone in this role. Again, how long has it been open is a great indicator of how this position or opportunity may progress for you. And then, the key requirements on the job description. And what is the hiring authority all about? What matters to them? What is their leadership style? Those different things to really paint that full picture of, what you're considering putting your resume or your time into that relationship. So how do you find recruiters? I would love for you guys to put in the chat, do you typically just find recruiters from them messaging you? you message the recruiters, at the company that you apply to? You can always look at the mutual connection route, right? Underneath the highlights on the recruiter's profile, it'll show you if you have mutual connections. And sometimes you can leverage like asking that person to make an introduction, okay? I learned this new trick recently. I wanted to share this with you. If you go to Google and you type in site:LinkedIn recruiter, and you put the type of recruiter and location, this is why LinkedIn is SEO friendly and fantastic. It will list out all the, recruiters that do SaaS recruiting or SaaS sales recruiting in Atlanta. So this is a really powerful way to also, find recruiters that maybe you didn't think about with some of the companies that you haven't actually seen a posting for, right? Potentially a way to build a relationship with recruiters that for future openings, which is kind of that tapping into the hidden job market. So say you find the dream recruiter at your dream company, and then you're like, then what? Now I want to get their attention. So you want to send them a note. So very standard is to introduce yourself. I understand you work for this company as this job title. I myself am looking to get into a similar role and was wondering if I could ask you for a bit of advice over a quick phone call. Oftentimes, asking for time is not going to get you a result right away, but you can always try, because as a recruiter, I get hundreds of inbound messages asking for time. I personally love it when someone just personalizes a message, says, hey, I see you're a recruiter at this company. Do you manage real estate positions? I applied for this real estate analyst rec number. Just wanted to introduce myself. Please give my resume a look when you have a chance, right? And then it's a lighter ask. It's not saying, hey, I need to have a phone call. So that's something to think about. Now, if you do this kind of message where I see that you work at this company as a recruiter, I bet you have a strong understanding of what your hiring teams are looking for in top talent. I myself am looking to get into insert job title. And I was wondering if I could ask you, for some career advice about working with said company over, a brief phone call. Again, personalized. You're not asking for a ton of time, but without saying you're looking for a job, it says that you're looking for a job. There's a lot of different ways you can do messages. So when I read a message or an email, this is what I'm thinking. Like, why is the person reaching out to me? What kind of skill set do they have? I do always try to connect the dots. Like, would this person be relevant for a position that I'm working on? Are we anticipating future roles that might need this person? And should I, schedule a phone call or a meeting with them, like determining, giving my time, and exactly what do they need from me? So when you're sending these messages, think about grabbing their attention, personalizing it, being concise, but also having that call to action and giving them just a little bit of curiousness around who you are, the results that you created, and, what type of job seeker or candidate that you are. Here's another example and just kind of structure. So greeting, addressing them by name, you want to ask for a little bit of, it's like the professional courtesy side, right? Like, again, introducing yourself in a concise way, the purpose of the message, kind of set the stage of your background, try to keep it concise, and then the call to action. Like, what do you want from the recruiter? And here's an idea. If your profile is awesome, like, instruct the person to say, like, hey, Anna, I see that you're a recruiter. I applied for this position. I can imagine you're very busy. If you'd like to see, what people say about working with me, check out the recommendation section of my profile, where you can see what my past manager, Scott, said about my performance as a senior recruiter. That, to me, like, as a recruiter, I'd be so curious that I'd be like, I have to go see that. And a lot of recruiters have that kind of curious nature. So you're playing into the psychology of curiousness. So because everyone else is asking for time. So I'm going to show you a couple of examples of what not to do. Hello, ma'am is one to avoid. Hi, how are you is awkward too. And sometimes think about writing, like, if you're going to write these outreach messages, would you say this to someone if you were in the grocery line behind them? It's like how I think about it. I'm looking for an internship. I saw an opening and there are any opportunities, like very I heavy. So be cognizant of how many times you're in the me energy versus am I communicating in a way of in service of solving a problem for the organization and or the recruiter. I know that's a little bit to handle, but zero personalization. I'm actively looking. Do you have a current opening? So it indicates to the recruiter that this person didn't even look at the careers page and is just kind of being a spammy job seeker, which is not going to get you results. This one is better. My name is Brianna. I'm looking to move to Atlanta. I would love to connect with you to get you my resume and speak about potential openings. Again, it's asking for time without specification of what type of candidate she is. So that is what it's lacking. And, a little bit of personalization. This is my all-time favorite coming up next. Let me know if you have a match and a resume. I'm like, who are you? What kind of candidate are you? What position are we talking about? Again, kind of keeping in mind why you're reaching out to that person. Here's another one. Can I send you my resume? I loved that she asked permission because a lot of people just are like, throwing resumes at me constantly. Or should I apply under the interested position? And I responded to that. I said, thank you for doing that. Yes, please, apply, but I'll be sure to, go check out your resume. So that's another example. Okay, so this is an awesome first line. I don't know if any of you were on Clubhouse back in the day. This could be relevant for a LinkedIn Live or an audio event on LinkedIn or a workshop, just personalizing like, hey, I loved listening to you on Clubhouse. I wanted to discreetly share my resume with you to see if you might be able to help me land my next position. Looking to break into tech. You can share my resume if you would like as well. Thanks for the help. So she explains why she's reaching out, but could be more specific about what types of role in tech and give the recruiter like some idea of the position types, like job titles in the tech sector that they feel would align with their experience. That would help the recruiter connect the dots a lot faster. Again, avoid sending a novel. Too much for the eyeballs to read. The other thing in any messaging, really anywhere, especially on LinkedIn, let your text breathe. Use short statements. Paragraph style form is not awesome on LinkedIn, just a FYI. So the more specific you are, gets more responses. I hope you're doing well. I applied for this position at this company with this requisition number. I would love to have an opportunity for an interview. So very direct, to the point, concise, it allowed me to qualify if those positions were still open. And then I could open the resume right there. At this point, I'm fine with sending the resume in this format. And then I would hop over to the ATS and move them forward and schedule a call. So, and showing gratitude, right? Like, that I'm a human behind the screen as well. Here's another one, says, I've been following these executives for a while and have a good feeling of the culture of this company and seems like an amazing place to work. So they're very much in the energy of complimentary, celebratory of the company that they want to work for. Gives an example of where they work, which is a good company, but looking for a change, right? So this is like a more passive job seekers, shows that they've done the research, has a perception of the organization and why they're looking to make a change. And this grabbed my attention because it was industry experience. Like he had done the research and we had a call and created a result for him through this experience. So you just want to do these things. Like if there's anything you remember from outreach messages, think about why them, why now? Why them, why now? So, how you set yourself apart is, variety of things, testing different things. But the more you give to others, the more you focus on the organization, the position, the individual recruiter, and then talk about yourself, the better your results are going to be in those outreach messages. This is just another confidence in confidence I'm exploring. I would be happy to share more about my details. Here's my email and phone number. So like a little bit of curiosity around, this is who I am and I'm kind of awesome, but I'm not going to give you my resume and give you everything. But here's the way to get a hold of me if you want to speak to me. And I appreciate that as well. So messages should consist of like the following parts: greeting, If you've been referred, again, the purpose, why them, why now? A tiny bit about your skills and background. If it makes sense to attach the resume, probably in the first message, I actually don't recommend it, but you trust your gut based on, your history with the company or position, and then call to action. What are you hoping the result to be? So here's a recruiter mantra for you. Working with recruiters will come with ease. A partnership will be formed, mutual respect will be found, and opportunities will appear that are mutually beneficial. My name is Anna Morgan, and this has been the Behind the Recruiter Curtain Insider Track.
To learn more about our training programs, classes, and what sets us apart, please visit our website at www.computercoach.com.